Hello everyone, Professor Arneline Torres here for another lecture presentation for international tourism and culture. For this week, we're going to talk about travel motivations. In this video presentation, we'll try to understand the importance of travel motivations and its effects on travel decisions. Our learning content for this video are the following. First, we look at motivation by starting to know its definition. Then we'll move to the formation of travel motivation and from travel motivation to travel action. Second, we will try to understand the reasons for traveling. And three, factors that influence travel motivation in action. And then the last part will be the typologies of travel motivations. So let's start by trying to understand the word motivation. So, motivation is the desire to act in a service of a goal. So, motivation starts when we have a goal. It's a crucial element in setting and attaining one's objectives. And according to studies, research shows that people can influence their own levels of motivation and self control. So, here I would like to simply say that motivation prompts people to take action, work hard to achieve a goal, and satisfy a certain kind of need. Like, for example, the Korean students, most of them have traveled in different parts of the world. And if we are going to ask the students, what prompts you to travel? What motivated you to travel? And we would hear several reasons for traveling. And sometimes, as they would want to travel to a certain country, they are not financially capable. And so, what they usually do is to work hard, like by taking a part time job, to achieve this goal. And so, once they save their money from the part time job during the winter break, they will try to go to the place that they would like to see to satisfy that need for traveling. So, travel motivations help explain the following questions. We would like to understand why people travel. Why? Because coming from a business point of view, it's very important that we know how to position our business, how to better serve the customers by knowing what motivates them to travel. We will be able to know, okay, what product to offer. Like, for example, how did we come up with several products and still coming up with several products in connection to tourism? That is because we found out the reasons why people travel. And so, this travel motivation will help us explain the following questions. Why do we go traveling? Why do we choose to travel to a certain place? Like, we have options, like a lot of people now, especially the young Korean students, would visit Europe. Why Europe of all places? And then why do we participate in a certain travel activity? And so, these are the questions that will be answered as we go through this lecture presentation. At this point, let's try to look at the formation of travel motivations. First, it starts with a need. When we say consumer, that is the person that will be buying a product, like for example, a travel package or products that are usually not comes as a package, like buying their own airfare, buying their own accommodation, and other elements of the tourism activity. And this consumer need, of course, we will be relating this to the tourist. And from that need, meaning you wanted to do this, it's not something that is insisted on you. So consumers' perception of what will satisfy their need. Now, here comes the choice. When you travel, usually you have the freedom to choose, right? As we've said, they have the freedom to choose where they want to go, and there's a certain influence, internal motivation that influence them to go traveling. But there's another side of the travel formation, and that is to look at the actual attractions. So before you plan to travel, you first, of course, did your research. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? So there are actual attractions like probably you browse the internet or you search the internet for places that you would like to check. Like, for example, you're planning to go to Europe. So there's the actual attractions, and then that actual attraction will be the consumer perception of the attraction, because attraction is something subjective. One place may be attractive to one tourist, and the other one is something that does not appeal to that person. And so, this consumer need about traveling and the actual attraction should jive. So, once this goes hand in hand, if these two will agree, then motivation to visit the destination will then be the result. Okay? So if you look back at the travels that you have done, do you think that this illustration fits on how you make a decision during your traveling? Now, so we have the motivation, and that motivation will be realized to travel actions. And so we also have a certain pattern of understanding the travel motivation that leads to the travel action. Before you travel, you have seen that you have a travel need. Okay? From the travel need, you have the motivation. So there will be no reason for traveling. You will always have a reason. And that reason might be a need for you to see the Eiffel Tower, a need for you to see the Big Ben, a need for you to see the Golden Gate Bridge, or probably to try some cuisines in the destination. So that's your need. Then that need will lead to travel motivation. From travel motivation, if you realized it, if that motivation materializes, that becomes now the travel action. And that travel action will depend on the individual factors and the external environment. You just don't act, because there are some considerations that you have to think about before the travel action, and that we will see also later on this slide. And from there, after you finish that one cycle of fulfilling the travel, it will again go back to your travel need. So if you ask yourself, how many times did you travel? And for every travel that you have done, there are different reasons of why you have done it. Whether you have done it locally or domestically or internationally. Okay? So, what are the reasons for traveling? First is, of course, the very obvious reason for tourism activity would be for leisure or holiday. So, relaxation can be attractive scenery, like, for example, what you see on the picture. Like, for some people, it's just the S motivation, like the sun, sea, and sand. So the tourist destinations are the coast, beaches, countryside and mountainous region. Now, aside from relaxation, another reason would be for sightseeing. Sightseeing and staying in different places for self-education and for self-esteem. There are people who usually stay in a place for a longer period of time. Like, I have one Korean student who told me that the intention is usually to learn about the culture of the place. And so for them, It is self-education about the culture of the place, and at the same time learning the language and having that knowledge when they get home gives them the self-esteem. And in here, it says that urban centers are common destinations. Like, for example, Korean students would go to Canada, to Australia, to US to expose themselves to the culture as well as to the language. And the usual things that tourists do would be to take a lot of photographs. Okay? Then moving on to a second reason is business. So business means or business includes trade, meeting, convention, and exhibition. This business reason has the following characteristics. First, the price of the package is relatively inelastic. What do we mean by inelastic? Meaning to say, we cannot choose the travel dates that are cheaper, or we cannot choose the packages that are cheaper, because the first reason why we will go to the destination is the need, like the need to be there during a business meeting. So regardless of whether the airfare is cheap or medium price or maybe low, the travel activity in relation to business must push through. And this business reason is not also greatly affected by seasonal factors, such as variation in climate or holidays. No matter what season they need to travel, no matter if it's a Chuseok holiday or a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, as long as they're needed to go to their destination or to attend to their business trip or meeting, then they have to be there. And another characteristic of this tourism activity is it's relatively short but frequent trips. When we say short, how short it can be? It can be for a day, it can be for an overnight, or it can be for 2 nights, but it's done frequently. How frequent? Probably every week, or maybe every month, or maybe I would say twice a month, or it may be every day. There are people who really travel this way, like those who are designated by lodging establishments to be a shopper or to be an inspector to the different chain of hotels that they have. So another thing is it may require different services such as communication facilities and secretarial service. Like, for example, if that business person will go to a place that speaks another language, and if they have to conduct a meeting, that person might need the service of an interpreter, or if that person will be doing a lot of paperwork and that paperwork can be delegated to somebody, then a secretarial service might be needed. Or maybe that person, when he checks in a hotel, will make sure that the hotel has a conference venue or a meeting venue, or would probably prefer to have a bigger room wherein one portion of that room would be the business area or the business meeting area. Okay, and because these people frequently travel and have been to several destinations, thus they expect a higher standard of service, not only in their accommodation but as well as in the other elements of their travel. Like, for example, in the airport, probably they would prefer to be on that express check-in. Okay, and when they ride a plane, their preference would be a little comfort. They might probably be need some time to look at the minutes of the meeting or the agendas of the meeting, and so they need I would say, a comfortable space that would give them a space to work or probably to relax to get ready for that meeting. So this is very different compared to the usual activities of a regular tourist. Okay. Then third reason is the cultural interest. So cultural interest means that they want that the knowledge be transmitted to them as a tourist, and they want to get the ideas of the destination area or the host community. So these people travel to learn and experience the culture of a tourist destination. Like, for example, if you see here on this photo that cultural activity can be dressing like the locals and probably acting the way that they act and maybe doing things that they regularly do on a daily basis. So, the prime motivational force for their travel is to learn about the place, to learn about the culture. Okay? So, they visit different types of cultural attractions, ranging from concrete attractions. So, some tourists would not want to be part of the host community, but rather would be to look at the culture as being presented in a museum or in a monument and other cultural performances. So we have here like a certain portion or one of the attractions in Egypt wherein people try to understand what are these pyramids, what is inside the pyramid. So they're interested to know, and knowing it would give them part of the country's history as well as a story telling of what happened in the past. Okay, next. Another reason for traveling is the curiosity. The curiosity to be with the environment. Like, for example, people would like to explore nature. So it is characterized as a force for conservation and the preservation of nature. They are interested to know the different species within the environment, like, for example, checking on butterflies, checking on plants, or maybe looking at animals, or maybe getting interested to see how forest looks like, or yeah, like for example, this part. So they cannot really see the whole thing when they're walking on the land. Thus, this place has built like a hanging bridge for people to appreciate what is the environment in this particular area. Okay, so there are more, but I don't have pictures. I only have pictures of two places. But anything that you can think about that is related to environment, you can always refer to this environment as a tourist product. So that is the very reason why I first talked about tourist product, for you to understand the reasons for traveling. Okay, and then for some people who are probably you see around, like the exchange students, they travel for study reasons, like maybe for a short period of time, like one semester. The students who are doing this are known as exchange students here. So they travel to overseas to learn or to be trained, such as in universities or for short or vacation courses. Like, they can be an exchange student to another university, like what we have here, or they can study a certain skill. Like, for example, we'll go to a special school to learn about wine, or maybe learn about coffee, or maybe learn about cheese making, or maybe learn about a language. Like, for example, a lot of Koreans would go to other places to study English. So let's study, or maybe to immerse themselves in the local community, to study the community. What's the difference of this study to the cultural thing? Because you see that there's also a host community here. Cultural, also remember, is a form of acquiring knowledge. specifically about the culture. And it's part of the study because study can be in any place. Like it can be in a small training center, it can be in a university, or it can be in a cultural space, such as like a community, a rural community, or a cultural community. Okay? And very obvious, people travel because of their faith, because of their religion, or because of their religious belief. And as you know, in our world, we have different religions. We're in, first and foremost, we have Buddhism, we have Christianity, we have Muslims, we have Shintoism, which is the religion of Japanese. There is also Hinduism and many more. And so people feel closer or feel closer to their belief if they would usually travel to the place where the religion has been founded. Like for example, in India, or maybe in Japan, or maybe in Rome. Okay, like for example, yeah, the Catholics, or maybe in what else? Help me think. Yeah, usually it's in Rome. Okay, and I think this is the last. So people travel because of health related reasons. So when we say health, it can also encompass like medical reasons or medical tourism. It can be something aesthetic. It can be something related to the rejuvenation of probably their spirit. So we have several pictures here. So this one represents like relaxation, like probably getting a massage, specifically making use of a certain kind of massage material unique to the place, or for medical reasons such as getting a medical treatment in one of the big hospitals in the destination, or it can be for therapy, or it can be for yoga, or anything that people think will make them well and will re-energize them. So I said health related, and I included medical reasons because I consider it uh, a part or a portion of what is health related, whether it's about your body, whether it's about healing, whether it's about meditation. So it's all health related. So it's a combination of body, mind, and spirit. Okay, so are we clear about those things? And probably you can think of other reasons too why you have traveled, or why you have traveled. Maybe I haven't mentioned it here, but you have other reasons. So as we do the face to face, you're free to share it in class so that we can probably be informed of the other reasons for traveling. Okay. Oh, yeah. Another thing, social. Social is visiting friends and relatives. So we people are social beings, and so for us, it is very important to connect. It is very important to have a relationship, and it's also important that we are witnessing a special celebration, or I would say a once in a lifetime activity of people, like for example wedding, or maybe simply family reunion, or maybe a simple get together during a holiday like your Chuseok, like your Solal. For Western people, it's Thanksgiving, or probably Christmas. Okay, so any reason related to you want to connect, you want to build relationship, is what we call social. Okay. Oh, there's more. I thought it's just seven. So we have sports also. This is for the hobbyist These are for the enthusiasts. These are for spectators of sports. Like I have heard many presentation of students talking about uh, their reasons for traveling, and most of them are for sports. Like they go to Barcelona to to watch a soccer game. They go to USA to watch basketball. They go to France for the Tour de France, and or for some, they are not just spectators but participants of a sports activity, like the recently held when was it, 2019 Pyeongchang Olympics, right? Yeah, Pyeongchang. Yeah, Pyeongchang Olympics, which was Winter Olympics, which was held in Gangwon-do. Okay, I think I'm done. Yeah, really, I'm done. Now we have the factors that influence travel motivations and actions. First, we have the internal factors, or what we call individual factors, like economic capacity. Your reason for choosing a destination depends on how much money you have. The more money you have, the further the place of choice, right? And also, the more money you have, the more, I would say, the better accommodation you will be taking in. And also, another thing that you have to consider is your spare time. How long can you be away? Like, for example, for people who are working, so how many days of leave are available to them? Or for students, how many vacation days are available? And so, this is also a factor that you consider when you plan your tourism activity or when you plan your travel. Another is sex, age, and physical condition. Why do we consider sex here? Sex means the gender, like if you're a male or a female. We consider that because there are places wherein, if you are a woman, you cannot travel alone. Like, for example, in the Middle East, it's safer if you travel, like maybe with a partner or with your husband, or probably, I haven't heard of people traveling in a group in the Middle East. Age is also a factor because depending on your age is the travel activity that you do. So the younger you are, like you are in your 20s or 30s, then you are more interested to do adventure activities like maybe bungee jumping, paragliding, hang gliding, or even like, scuba diving if you are still young, because your age allows you to do a lot of physical activities and physical condition, because of we have heard in the last presentation about people with special needs. So there are travelers who are immobile by themselves, like they need something that will help them to be mobile, like for example, maybe a wheelchair, or probably, yeah, usually it's a wheelchair, or maybe a physical condition can be you are in your senior years and that you are not capable of walking that far. And so that should something be considered. Like, for example, if it's hard for a person to walk, then I don't recommend that person to be going to Beijing and see the Great Wall of China and walk from the first and walk all throughout the place, because that's really a long walk, and the weather extremely affects the walking. Okay, another would be the psychological factors, meaning that each of us as travelers have our individual interest. I would say that one person may have their own interest. Why do they travel? Like, for example, for some people, it's something educational. For some people, it's something cultural. Okay, so exposure to another culture. For some people, it may be sports. So, like the reasons that I did mention in the previous slide, so individual interest, or it can be a combination of those interests, or it can be the hobbies. Like, for example, I usually enjoy going to marketplaces because it's my hobby to learn the culture through food. So I'm very much interested in food culture. That's why when I go to a place, I see to eat that I visit like a farmer's market or a public market or a place where people get their commodities. Like even simply a different 7-Eleven or a different convenience mart would interest me. Okay. And that is in relation to my hobby of equipping myself with food culture knowledge. Another reason is profession. So, why profession? Like doctors would be interested in what? Engineers would be interested in what? Architects would be interested in what? So, doctors probably might be interested to find new medicines, okay, or new equipment that will help them practice their profession. The engineers might be interested to look at structures in that place. Like, for example, Chicago is a very good place for architects and for engineers. And the attitude to life. What attitude? Like, are you the type of person who enjoys just sitting and watching nature, or are you that type of person who is interested to talk to local people? So, are you that open? Okay, or are you someone who wants also to do what they practice, like for example, the rituals in their local community? And another thing is understanding the environment. Like, um, I don't know if you've heard of Okinawa. Okay, so Okinawa is a place where a lot of centenarians are still living. So, who are the centenarians? The centenarians are people who have reached the age of 100. And so people are interested why or how these old people have reached a certain age. And there's a place wherein there's a lot of centenarians. And so people would go to that specific place in Okinawa to find out, to understand the environment. What is it in the environment that makes these people reach that age? Is it because of the weather? Is it because of the water? Is it because of the diet? Is it because of the lifestyle? So they try to understand the environment. They try to understand the community so that they can have an answer to why people reach that certain age. Not everybody reaches 100. And so that's something special. And they would like to learn reasons why. Okay? And then we also have the level of education. Like they see that the more educated you are, the more curious you are. So you are open not only to take pictures or to see sights, but you're open to new and interesting things to experience. Okay? So level of education matters. And also, uh, the last thing, or maybe one psychological factor that really matters is the family. So if you're traveling with your family, okay, there might be a different activity that you will be doing as a family. Like members of the family would usually have different interests. Okay, so the idea is how to satisfy the differing interests of the family members into one place. So those are things that you usually consider, or that influences travel motivation and actions. You just don't act. You act and you arrive at a certain decision, by looking at some factors that affects your decision making. Sometimes you want, but sometimes you don't have the means or you have other reasons not to do what you want. Okay? So next is the external factors. So we have to consider the external environmental conditions. Like for example, the overall development of the tourism industry. So when the economy of a country or a region is developed, enough resources, travel facilities, and transport. So one thing that I would like to make mention here is tourists have to consider the tourism infrastructure. And when we say infrastructure, that includes the different resources from the airport to the transportation to the accommodation, uh, and the other things that a tourist might need in the destination. So people would usually want comfort, and so they would go to developed countries. Or people would like to see how a simple life is lived. They would usually go to a developing country. And so this is one of the external environmental condition. The second is the group, family, and social atmosphere. So sometimes you don't feel like traveling, but because there's a group or social pressure, like for example, travel activities organized by enterprises or travel awards, like those who are in sales and those who are performing well in their job would usually be rewarded with an opportunity to travel. And sometimes it's not only for themselves, for that person, but it also includes the family. And so even though you don't feel like traveling, but because it's all paid by the company together with your family, and so you have to really go and consume the award given to you. Also social surroundings, like for example friends. So I think many of you have traveled with your relatives, with your friends in different places, and I don't know what is enjoyable for you, to travel alone, to travel with the family members, or to travel with friends. So these are the things that you usually consider. If you're just by your own, it's easy to make a decision, right? Because you just have to look at your budget and your time and where you want. But if you are traveling in a group, then the decision making before to fulfill the travel action is a little more challenging compared to you traveling alone. So we have to think about this factors that influence travel motivation and actions. It's not having the motivation and then jumping on to act on it or to do it or fulfill it. But there are things that we need to consider before you come up with a travel action. It's very important to really plan your travel, considering the internal environment or the reasons that lies within you, and in considering also the external environmental conditions. So external, I would say, would also be in consideration of the safety during the travel or safety at the destination. These are things that you have to really consider. Okay, so I think this is the last of typologies for travel motivations. So first we have relaxation and health. So we all know what's this about. So now we're combining relaxation and health. And next is the exploration or risk taking. Exploration is adventure. Risk taking would be trying to do things that you cannot usually do in your own place. Like, as I've said, the adventure sports that I have presented as a tourism product. and also spiritual and the appreciation of beauty. So when we say spiritual, this is something that you actually dream of, like maybe learning how to have that peace of mind, learning how to be calm, or maybe acquiring more knowledge about your faith. Okay. And appreciation of beauty would be communing with nature, like as I've said previously, enjoying the nature by just sitting down in front of the beach, or probably renting like a cabin and then living in a mountainside. Okay. And also social interaction that we have mentioned. So your intention or what pushes you to travel is to you know to connect with people. Connect means it can be like a family, it can be a friend, or it can be a newly acquired friend. And of course we've mentioned that religious or faith or religion or faith as the motivator for traveling, like going to the places that I have previously mentioned, like in Rome, in India, or maybe in Japan, or any place where the religion is massively practiced. And we also have official affairs or business affairs and official matters. So this is the business reason, or the business, yeah, the business reason. So it can be to attend a meeting, it can be to do an exhibition, or it can be to be a speaker in a conference, or it can be like representing your company. So anything business related is one motivation for traveling. And also, we see here that family responsibilities is also part of this typology. Family responsibilities means that you have to be present in a special occasion or in a holiday that your family enjoys, like, for example, Thanksgiving, or maybe Chuseok, or maybe Christmas, or maybe Solal. Okay, so I hope after learning things about motivation, like we have defined motivation, we have seen how motivation is formed, like it comes first with a need and with an understanding of the place, and then from that need, it becomes a motivation, and that motivation will only become or will only materialize if we know how to take action. The action is the fulfillment of the motivation. It's also the fulfillment of the travel activity. Then we also learn the different reasons for traveling. We've identified so many reasons for traveling, and you've seen that you may fall into one of those, or probably you have experienced all those things. And then we talked about the factors, both the internal and external factors that affects your travel decision. And the last part that, yeah, I think we talked about are the typologies of travel motivation. So, if I may connect this lesson to tourists, we have first started learning about the tourist, the behavior, the typologies of the tourist, as well as the different personalities of the tourist. We are now looking into what motivates them to travel. So it's very important to really know the different motivations, so that positioning yourself as an entrepreneur, as a tourist oriented business, to understand the different reasons why people travel, and to understand their needs as well. I really hope, and also not only that, but taking your own hat, like where you are positioned, like as a traveler or as a tourist, it will give you an idea why you have done the traveling. What motivated you? Who are you with? And uh, what pushes you, because of course I believe that you just don't pack your bags and go somewhere else, but you do the necessary planning whenever you go to a certain destination. So I hope this topic is very clear, and if it's not, then I encourage you to take down notes on things that you do not understand, and probably bring it with you as we see each other in class. Bring that question, and we'll try to give you an answer for that question. Or if you're interested to share in the class some of your experiences in relation to how you plan your travel, how you were motivated by a certain thing, and how you fulfill that goal of traveling and having it materialized by doing the action, which is traveling. So that's it for this video presentation. I thank you for listening, and see you in class.